Professor Brené Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Now you've gone to do your postgraduate and now you've been introduced into this, like you're in a thriving space where it's not tests, it's research and it's practicals and this is what you love and this is what you thrive in. What did you work on in your honors?
So for my honors, I've actually done jellyfish like for most of my postgrad, but in different ways. So for my honors, we just had a mini project, so it wasn't like a full big blown like research project, but I took on a fairly big project where I did a lot of taxonomy. And jellyfish taxonomy has always been very interesting, and also just jellyfish because it's never that straightforward to study them. And so I actually remember taking the honors project that I took.
Hi there, welcome to another part of Verena's story. And sadly, when I was editing this, I realized that I lost some part of the recording, and it must have been something to do with some confusion that I had while doing the recording, or I don't know, maybe the file was corrupted. I'm not sure what happened. But from here, I think I'll just go direct to her telling her story about her MSc going upwards. So, I wanted you to rest.
No problem.
Okay, so let's go to your master's. You said it took 3 years for you to do your master's. First of all, how did you transition from your honors to your master's?
It wasn't a really difficult transition, because I basically took my honors study and I kind of just like did it on steroids. So I did a lot more specimens. I looked at, I kind of did the same project but on steroids. So I looked at things in a lot more detail. I added a lot of data. I did a lot more work to basically make it a lot more credible. And I also looked at a few different species as part of my MSc. But all the time I was just kind of building up different skill sets in different things, and so that was always very important to me. So the transition from honors to masters was not that difficult, just because I was kind of carrying on with kind of the same work, so I was quite comfortable with what I was doing, and because I was working, it was actually something that my supervisor suggested that I do, because we had a couple of different projects in mind for my masters, and he went, you know what, you are working all the time. Let's do this, in a smart way, in a way that will allow you to actually finish and you can finish it. And so he was really great in that he told me this is not going to be like the most amazing masters. It's not, going to be some award-winning study or project. But the important thing is you'll get it done. And so for him, it's always been, he's always told us when we're doing, our MScs and now with our PhDs, he's like, it's just the masters. Why are you stressing? Why do you want to do all of this? It's just the masters. It's more important that you finish it. And so he always was just of this mindset of, well, it's not going to do anything for your life and your career development if you don't finish it. You're just going to be stuck here. And so he was always just finish. Do things that you can finish, but that will still be impactful, that you'll still learn from, you'll still develop from. And so he kind of told me, let's write this out, there's so much work that needs to be done. There's lots of data here that needs to be worked up. And there's lots of people who want the data, to feed into other bigger initiatives or projects or management strategies. And so, and so we just kind of had this idea of, well, let's do the same thing, but we change it up, we make it bigger. And so you really just also become, this really big expert in this type of work or within this domain or for these species. And so that's been quite cool though, because I also realized there aren't that many people doing jellyfish around the world, but it's not just the doing jellyfish, per se, but it's all those other little techniques and skills that I've picked up along the way, that I think has been very important, and it's kind of helped me with really every other thing that I've done, every other job. A lot of the skills and things that I've picked up along the way has really helped me. So even transitioning into bioinformatics, I did a lot of sort of specimen management and stuff like that, and data management as part of my project naturally. But then that helped me a lot when I got to this particular position. The internship that I did was in collections, and that was biospecimen management. And so that also helped me with this. It just helped me understand, a lot of different elements of different things. And yeah, I think it's kind of all has meshed together over time.
I love that you said that this is now for me. I'm taking it for me because I'm in that situation. I'm doing my master's and I'm trying to get everything perfect. But you saying that, sometimes just get it done. It's the skills that you acquire along the way that you can use on other things, or that can help you grow in the same space. Because for me, I remember, is it yesterday I was telling you that, yes, I've filled three, I'm nearly filling 3 lab books, but I'm not seeing any progress. But, my supervisor, talking of, that's why I was so happy when talking about good bosses. I was just thinking about my supervisor and how she has been a very supportive, human being. Especially her being a woman, in that space. So, and she was mentioning that, there's so much that you've learned all through this while. And, as in, that's, because for masters, that's, or rather in whatever section of life you're in, the most important thing is are you learning from that? What skills are you gaining from that? It's not necessarily how to get a Nobel Prize out of this work, Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it's also just very important that you also recognize that you can also, you don't always have to be the star scientist. You can be that person that becomes more of a facilitator for somebody else's journey as well. And I very much have started to feel like I'm in that kind of space naturally, and that's where I thrive. It's when I facilitate somebody else's journey. And so I've a long time ago, I told myself, you're never going to win a Nobel Prize. Girl, be realistic. But what you can do maybe is help somebody else win a Nobel Prize, and you can be that person on the sideline that helps them get there, and that can be the difference in their journey. And so I've kind of started to feel like, that in and of itself is still a very noble thing to do with my life. If I help somebody else's journey become a little bit easier, then that's fantastic. And that's really where I do the best work, is when I'm trying to help somebody else. I don't really do that well when I'm trying to help myself and when I'm trying to just focus on myself, but I do really well when I focus on somebody else. And it might seem a bit counterintuitive, but I think it lends my personality really well to a more training environment or capacity development type of role. And so that's why I think I've always just kind of gravitated to positions that still kind of centered around training in some way. And growing up, one thing my father would repeat over and over and over and over and over is, nobody can take a good education away from you. Absolutely nobody. They can they can take so many things from you, but nobody can take a good education. And so that's one thing he always told us is, if I can give you nothing else in life, I'm going to try and give you the best education that I can give you. Because that's the legacy that I will leave. And I think it's also because he missed out on an opportunity to do tertiary studies, back in, he had his own personal struggles and situation that he had to go through, and he missed out on the opportunity, as did my mother. And so for them, it was very much just set yourself up well in this way, because they were always just about, learning and developing yourself. And, it wasn't just about job security or stability, but it's just the kind of thinking that comes with being in these kinds of spaces and environments. And so all of us, we have such a different way of thinking that's been shaped by our ability to be within these tertiary environments, that we wouldn't have if we weren't. And yeah, and I'm very grateful to the fact that more than anything, they drove us to want to, seek knowledge. And I think that's a great legacy to leave, is to have kids who more than anything are seeking knowledge. I mean, you don't also have people that come from difficult backgrounds, going, I want knowledge and I don't want money. Of course we want money, but we want knowledge more.
Yeah. Dude, that's funny though. Oh my goodness. Okay, so how did you transition to, did you know that you wanted to do a PhD first of all?
I didn't. Actually, during my undergrad, there was actually a time when I almost felt like I wanted to drop out. Like, I think I came actually very close to saying, like, I don't even want to do this anymore. But
your undergrad or your PhD?
No, my undergrad. Like, I was actually thinking, maybe, tertiary education and academia isn't even for me. There was a time when I just went, I don't know. And
what had happened?
No, I was just really struggling. I was struggling to, get good grades. And, I always kind of felt like I needed to get good grades because I needed to get, funding. And so when I didn't, it was kind of, it was very difficult to deal with. And it's just that thing of like, I don't feel good enough. And like, if I can't even pass like some of the basic stuff, like how am I ever going to be a scientist, like realistically? And I went through a lot of that. But I think when I decided that I wanted to do a PhD was, even through all of that, when I got through my honors year, and I actually felt like, oh my word, I really did well. I went from being the weakest student, and I cum laude my honors, and
wow,
I shocked myself. I was like, how did I do this?
Wow.
I still don't know how I did that. And I think it was that moment when I actually walked across the stage, and they said, oh no, this is Verena Das, and she's passed, blah, 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 and she's passed cum laude. And I just, like, that moment I went, oh my word, like, I don't know how I did this, but I did. And I just thought, you know what? This might seem very stupid, actually, but I went, you know what, for everybody who's ever told somebody like me that you don't deserve this or you shouldn't be, I'm going to do a PhD. And it was almost pure spite that has kept me going.
What?
Because I went, you know what? I was told so many times that you shouldn't be here. You're not good enough. Even on my master's, on my MSc dissertation, I had one reviewer who was actually just plain nasty, and they actually said in my formal review that I was such a remedial, like, scientist. They actually called me remedial. Yeah, they told me I was just, like, slow. Not able to keep up.
Because
challenged.
it took too long, or what?
No, they just said that my work was very like lackluster. It was very boring. It was very like ancient, and they gave such bad comments. And they actually said that they actually said I was such a remedial scientist, and they wouldn't even recommend that I, as a candidate, progress further with my academia. They wouldn't recommend that I do a PhD because I'm just not good enough. And they actually said that in my formal review, and I had to read this. And I thought it was very cowardly that they didn't disclose their name firstly. So if they ever listen to this podcast, I want them to know that I felt like it was very cowardly that they said all these nasty things,
cowards.
But they didn't give me their name. But in all honesty, I think it was also comments like that made me go, well, you know what? I'm just going to do it to spite you. Whoever you are out there in the world, I'm going to spite you and I'm going to get it. No matter how terrible I am along the way, no matter if I produce something really crummy at the end of it, I just want to get it and go, I did it. Despite everyone saying, you shouldn't be here. I mean, I remember being in a situation, even at a conference where, I'm not even at a conference, just a very formal setting, and somebody came past me, and I was talking about like some of the work that I do, and they went, oh, you're so cute, you think you do science. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, who says that to somebody? And there were lots of moments like that where I was just undermined. Yeah, I was just like totally undermined, and I was given all these like snarky comments, and I don't know, I was always just made to feel like I don't really deserve them. I'm just not as good as the people around me. And you know what? I actually maybe wasn't as good as the people around me, but so what? That didn't mean that I didn't deserve to be there. Didn't mean that I didn't work just as hard to get there. I might have been less capable, or maybe my IQ was lower, whatever it might have been. Maybe that was very much true, but that didn't mean that I didn't deserve to be there. But at the time, I didn't view it like that. I obviously took it very personally. And I thought about these things a lot, and it was actually only very recently that I just went, so what? I really don't care.
Wait, okay. This is someone you know? These are people you know?
It was an acquaintance, I would say. It wasn't really somebody I knew, but it was somebody in my environment, like somebody I would see again.
Then out of nowhere, they just said that?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else even about the work, and they were, you're so cute, you think you do science.
Huh?
I know, it was such a mean comment. And like, I will always remember it, but the way I remember it now is very different to how I remember it back then. Like, the way I feel towards it is, it's, I don't know, but I just find it funny when people are just nasty. Because also why? Like, I was young at the time, I was a young scientist, I was still like, just coming into my MSc, and then to have comments like that, and then I have reviewers that just trashed like everything I did, and all my stuff was always just like, there was always this bad feedback and this negative, like, just like this negative order hanging over all the feedback that I got. It was really hard, and like there was a lot of times when stuff like that also broke people around me. So there were some really brilliant scientists who I watched go through similar experiences, and you know, the outcome for them wasn't as good. Like, it really impacted the way that they saw themselves in academia, and a lot of them actually left academia and they went and did other things. And I see how feedback like that and just comments like that can really shake a person's confidence. And so I would just say to anybody who ever does that, just don't. Like, even if you have those thoughts, keep them to yourself. You don't know the damage that you're doing to the next person. And so because of that, I'm also very careful of like trashing people and trashing their work and just acting like their work is subpar. No, it's not. Maybe it's not where it needs to be, but it can always get there. I always say anything can be improved. Anything can be made better. I don't believe that anything is a dead end or just bad. That I don't think that exists.
You've reminded me of something I was also listening to. Nothing academic. It's just there's this lady in Kenya who's 21, I think. 21, yeah. She started a YouTube channel out of, not getting money, and she had just started school. She had repeated her high school because her parents couldn't get fees, and when she finally was able to go into a small college, she wasn't able to pay her fees, and now she moved out of her village and came to Nairobi and just started something, and a YouTube channel, and now it has grown. Now she earns more than how much is 1 million per 1 million shillings divided by 100? 1 million divided by 100. My head is not working. What is 1 million divided by 100? That is 4 zeros. Okay, so that is $10,000. Okay, that is $10,000 she earns per month out of just, her following what she wanted to do, and not her body image. I mean, she has the skinnier image, and people, before she came to the limelight, of course, before she was so popular and people seeing her growth, she didn't get trash comments about her body. But once she was out there and people were seeing how hardworking she is, how aggressive she is, just trying to get interviews and all that from different people. Now people are attacking her body. And I like the way what she said, that at first it used to be a struggle, but now later on she realized, I mean, these are people you don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know what is making them talk. Because, you know, a normal human being cannot just come out of nowhere and say very ugly stuff to someone else. But you don't know what this person is going through. It's not like it's justified for them to do that, but that thing comes out of something that this person is doing. And she said that for her, as much she tries to look at it in a to kind of block it in her mind. So because yes, she can talk and say, don't do this, but people wouldn't necessarily do that. But she's like, okay, it's better that they put their bitterness on me instead of killing themselves, because probably there's something they are going through.
That's a very mature way of looking at things.
Because, okay, this is how that's a very harsh, way of saying it. But if you look at it, for me, how I saw it is, for someone to say something very negative towards someone, it's not really about the person they're talking to most of the time. Actually, it has nothing to do with the person they're talking to. It's like a projection of what is going through, what they're struggling with inside themselves. It's like the way someone who's doing the wrong things or who in a bad situation, they're usually the best advisors out there. Not because not because they know how to apply it, but because they know what exactly can work, but they don't know how to apply it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, like someone who's going through something tough, and they feel a certain way about themselves. Since they've not being aware of themselves and known that this is what I'm going through, they kind of project it to someone else. And the worst thing is that they don't realize the magnitude of whatever they're saying to someone, what it can do to them, because they're not even in a position to even realize, actually, it's not even about the person they're talking to. They're actually talking to themselves,
But I think you need to, I think you have to have a lot of maturity, though, to also perceive that in that way. Because I don't think it's easy for people to look at things from that perspective or from that context, because obviously, we're all looking at things from where we are and how people are treating us in, we're looking at things from that perspective. So, but I think it's always useful, because I think it helps you understand people's behavior a little bit differently.
Yeah. I mean, you knowing this doesn't mean, even me knowing this doesn't mean that I wouldn't, still be affected by what someone else says.
No,
but
definitely,
Yeah, but it kind of helps. But it doesn't really mean that it's like knowing something, but implementing it in your heart at a particular time is not the same thing. But it's kind of a good thing just to think about it. Like when someone makes comments that are meant to not mean good to you, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not good enough. It's just it is just about them. There's something they're going through. Anyway, I just had to put it out there, because I went through the same thing, but not in a different aspect. And it happened to me when I was going through depression. When I was just out of school and trying to figure out, now I'm the firstborn, I'm supposed to think about how to get ourselves out of this, poor situation and excel with my, and look for a job, get money, and all those things that were going through in my mind. And when I was so aggressive on LinkedIn, trying to see who can I contact, who can help me get to this, who can help me get a master's or get a job, and someone will just call you. They'll just grab your number and just call you, use their credit, I just tell you all the bad things you can think about. Like, they just took their time to just tell you how anyway. So you're saying something, sorry. you're talking about you transitioning to a PhD. It was majorly out of spite, out of trying to prove that, I can do it. It wasn't like
I mean, a lot
something
of it
you
was,
actually wanted to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of it was just out of spite, but I think, I mean, I've actually been busy with my PhD for a very long time, just by the way. This is my 6th year busy with this, and so I have to get it done this year. But I think it's also just been really tough because I've been just working the whole time. But I think through all of these experiences and all these things that have happened, I think now for the first time in a long time this year, although it's been very frustrating trying to like get everything done this year, it's like the first time when I've actually really just started to enjoy the work again. Where I've just gone, this is so nice. Like, I actually feel like when I get to do my PhD work now, because I've been distracted so much by everything else, I'm like, this is so nice to look at. Like, it's so nice to see, like, all this data and work through it. And, like, it's actually a good experience. And last year I went to the lab a few times, and when I walked in there, it was like, like, I'm home. I had that, like, almost like a euphoric experience where I was just like,
happy.
And usually I didn't associate that kind of feeling with being there. It was just stress. And it was like the first time when I was like, it's so nice to be in this environment. And that's when I actually started to realize how much I did actually enjoy it. And when the pressure of like all these other things are taken away and you just get to be there and just do a bit of work, and there's no pressure to do anything with it. You're just working. That was when I really just started to enjoy things again. And like my professor, when he realized I was under a lot of pressure with my work and everything, juggling everything, he actually told me, you know what, I'm going to step back and not put so much pressure on you from my side. And, you do your work at your own pace. You make your progress at your own pace. And that actually helped me a lot, because when I was in a funk and work was really busy and I couldn't do my PhD work that often, it didn't feel as bad, and I didn't feel as bad. I didn't feel like I was letting him down or anybody else down. I just went, oh man, I just delayed myself a little bit more again. But it's okay. Like, I'll pick it up again. I'll try and make up the time. I never made up the time, but it was just good because I didn't feel like I was letting anybody down, and I could do things when I could do things. And so that was quite nice. And so now I've actually, now towards the end of my journey, I'm actually starting to enjoy it again. And now I'm like, and now it's coming to an end, and I'm just starting to enjoy it again. But I guess that's also life, eh?
Wow. It's nice to hear that, it's okay when it's not, you're not enjoying, and it's okay to find, even if it's too late, or rather it kind of feels too late, it's nice to hear that someone is actually enjoying doing what they're doing now.
Yeah, and I think when the pressure's removed, you actually do really, like, a lot of us, like, I think a lot of our projects are making us feel like we're banging our heads against the wall, but if we didn't have to submit for, like, to get a degree or whatever, we'd actually really enjoy what we were doing now, I think. When all of that expectations are removed, when you just get down to the bare bones of things, you actually do just really enjoy what you do, actually. If you could do it for, under less pressure, I think a lot of us actually would sit there and go, I actually really love this.
Wow. Thanks for sharing your journey. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add that you've left out in terms of that.
There's not really anything that I've left out, but I think the one thing that I will just maybe say is that celebrate every single win, celebrate every single victory, whether it's, an experiment just going right in the lab or it's a graduation, celebrate everything, because it's the celebrations that will start to remind you of, why you like to be there, and it'll fill up your memories with a lot more positive things. So I didn't celebrate a lot in my time. When I graduated, I went to the graduation ceremony and I went home, and I just continued as if nothing happened. So, and I regret that, because that should have been like a really bright like moment in my past, and it still is for the graduation and for the victory that it was, but there was no real big celebration around it. And so going forward, that's something I'd like to do a lot more often, is just celebrate all the wins, a little publication or a little popular article being written somewhere, even your own article that you're posting on LinkedIn that you wrote yourself. And, it's no big publisher, but you're proud of the piece of work that it is. Celebrated. There's no reason why you shouldn't. And I think when people become comfortable celebrating everything, a lot more people will become comfortable celebrating everything.
Yes.
And so it just reminds you why you're sacrificing what you're sacrificing. So yeah, that's the one thing I maybe didn't say before, is just celebrate as much as you can. This life is just really short, right? You don't want to look back and go, I wasted so much time. And a lot of us do, unfortunately. And I feel like it's more when you get to this stage that you're telling people, oh, well, you want good things to look back on and you don't want regrets. But I think it's also a natural part of being human, is that when you get to this age, you start to get that perspective of, I wasted so much time just being unhappy.
But it's a learning moment, right?
Yeah,
it's learning still.